Well, 17 points. Russell Wilson doing maybe old Russell Wilson things. What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to Halftime Show presented by Coors Light. Will Peterson, James Merrilat, Rachel Veal hanging out with you for the next 15 minutes or so as we talk about, flashes from this team. Now, again, I don't want to get a hold of ahead of ourselves because we're playing a Chargers team that, while I'm shocked that they're still playing some starters, I'm sure they're not going full force. But again, we're still seeing flashes of hopefully good things to come next year, Will Peterson.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, they've had a couple good drives today, right? Just like they had good drives in Kansas City. Is it a coincidence that Nathaniel Hackett's gone and they're finally moving the football, right? I don't think so, So, yeah, they had a lull in the middle, which we've seen lulls all year, some boring football. But the first drive and the last drive, both resulted in touchdowns, not field goals. Like you said, Rachel, 17 points. And yeah, Brandon Staley, we'll get into it. He's playing with fire. What is this dude doing? Joey Bosa's hurt. Mike Williams is hurt. Good, Brandon Staley. That's called karma. No idea why your starters are in there. You got the 5th seed locked up. But of course I'm encouraged. They're going to put another 25 to 30 points on the board today. That's a good sign for these Broncos.
Yeah, look, the end result doesn't matter, obviously. I mean, I know they'd like to avoid 13 losses for the first time in franchise history, but ultimately it doesn't matter. You're just looking for little glimmers of hope of, hey, whether it's Jim Harbaugh or Sean Payton or Dan Quinn or whoever comes in here, do they have something to kind of build upon? And Russell Wilson making plays, making that throw. He was terrible up until then. I think he had 18 yards passing before that pass, but all right, on the move, making a play. Jerry Jeudy making a play. Latavius Murray had a couple of nice runs. So, yeah, you're looking for any little glimmers of hope. Again, something to build upon, something that you look at and say, all right, the cupboard isn't totally bare. There were some positives in the first half. I'll take it. 17 points. I mean, they were at 10. I thought it was time for halftime chill.
I know we had Keith out on Twitter calling us out. He was like, oh, the Broncos got 10 points. It's time for halftime chill, and tagged all of us. Keith, thanks for hanging out with us too. Okay, so lots of people obviously in the comments are saying this is positive. At least it's enjoyable. At least this is somewhat fun. And then we're also getting, and somebody's calling you out, James, being like, is James going to be negative today? James, are you in a negative mood?
No, it's 17-17 at half. I mean, they got a shot at getting that 5th win. What's there to be negative about?
But Will pointed it out. What the heck is Brandon Staley doing? If you were a coach for this Chargers team, is there any way, like what possible point in your mind are you like, we should keep our starters in? Or do you think we saw him in the first half, second half, we're not seeing Justin Herbert, James?
I don't think we'll see the starters in the second half. I don't think we'll see Justin Herbert. I will give Brandon Staley a little bit of a benefit of the doubt here, right? Like if you take the week off and they go out next week and they're rusty against Jacksonville, everybody's going to be critical of them. They're on a roll. They've won 4 straight or trying to win 4 straight. Like, why would you turn it off? It's football. Guys can get hurt on any play. Heck, Broncos guys get pulled hammies in practice on a Wednesday and go on IR. So to some extent, it's a little bit unfortunate. And while I don't think James Lofton makes very many good points, he did make a good point of, okay, well, then you're basically having to pick who's important and who's not. Right. So it's like, well, Mike Williams, you don't have to play because you're important. But everybody else, other than Justin Herbert, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, like it's a little bit of a tough spot. So listen, I'm in the camp of just go play. I really am not a bubble wrap guy. That's so Nathaniel Hackett. And how's that working? How'd the bubble wrap work for the Broncos all season long? Give me a break.
James, he got 2 of his 5 best players hurt today in the first half. We don't know the extent of their injury. And, oh, by the way, you and I hosted a show on Friday night on 104.3 The Fan where you wanted to bench Russell Wilson today. So you're kind of talking out of both sides of your mouth here.
Because the Broncos don't have a game next week. They don't. Who the hell cares if they're rusty next week? They're not playing in a playoff game. The Chargers are actually going somewhere. They have. You can say this game doesn't count. They have something to play for in terms of momentum and rhythm and all those kind of things. Like the Broncos are going to be in Cancun next Saturday, Sunday, or Monday, whenever the Chargers play at Jacksonville. So I think if your season is still going, then you just play. I think you can make an argument on either side. And again, if they're rusty next week because they took the week off, everybody would be critical of them. There's no guarantee with injuries. Just go out and play. That'd be my vote. I don't have a problem with Brandon Staley.
Well, here's one thing we can all agree on. The Broncos announced that there's 60,000 in attendance today. Do we all agree there is absolutely no way that there's 60,000 people in attendance down there for the $400,000 new field, Will?
No, it looks like, again, no offense, but some of those shots of the upper deck look like the high school football state championship games. There's a lot of seats, dressed up as empty fans. I just can't believe that they're going to announce 5,000 or 6,000 less no-shows today than they did against the Cardinals, because the shots are even worse up there in the upper deck. And that $400,000 turf, guys, that looks pretty on TV and it looks pretty at the start. But Russell Wilson had a play where he looks like he's wearing ice skates. Guys are tearing that thing up all over the place. Good idea in theory, looks prettier in theory. This thing hasn't been worn in at all. They did it kind of in a rush, and that field is going to be chewed up by the end of the game.
Yeah, no doubt. And look, I'm not talking out of school here because it was 20 years ago. But when I worked for the team, I went into the booth that runs the scoreboard and everything before a game. And they had the no-shows written down, ready to put up on the – so I'm not saying they still do it. I'm just saying if there's 13,202 no-shows today, that was written – my guess is that was written on a piece of paper before they ever opened a single turnstile at Empower Field today. Give me a break.
Oh my gosh, I would love to know if that's actually still true. That's actually a interesting fun fact there, James Merlat. Very, very interesting.
I like a good conspiracy theory. I saw it with my own eyes 20 years ago. Most of those people are probably no longer there. But come on. They show the lower level, and it looks like it's a third empty. Like, there's no way there's only 13,000 no-shows. Balderdash on that one. No way.
What is our take on the fact that they did this whole new field to kind of just show, hey, we've got the money, we can do this. We want to show that we're going to be like the top place to play. What's your take on this and how the ownership did it, Will?
Well, I think it's good they're not cutting any corners, right? They would have been playing on glorified dirt today. If you watch the video the Broncos put out of the transition, the first shot that they had, we hadn't seen Empower in a few weeks, right? They were on the road on Christmas. They were on the road on New Year's Days. It was dirt. It was literally dirt, and they would have just had to paint the dirt. So I like that Greg Penner's saying, hey, this isn't acceptable from an aesthetic standpoint or a player safety standpoint. The thing I guess I don't like is how did it get to this point? We live in Colorado. It's like this every year. We get storms every year. You host the high school state championship games every year. Shouldn't you be prepared for this? So just another thing that Penner needs to figure out as he evaluates every piece of the organization. That's going to be another one. My grounds crew, what are they doing right? What are they doing wrong? Maybe go hire the guys from 20th and Blake, because the Rockies get a lot of crap. The best thing they do is their field is always in immaculate shape, even after these crazy storms at the start of the year and the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, look, blame it on the high school games. Give me a break. I mean, they were bad before those games ever happened. And, we've been watching games in Denver for a long, long time at an old Mile High. They had the heated field, and it tended to look way better than this in December and January. So, yeah, somebody's dropping the ball down there. I think it's so they can host the Bills and the Chiefs in the AFC title game. I think that'd be perfect. The grass will be a little more settled by then. Give it a chance. I don't know if it'll take root. I'm not a horticulturist. I don't think it'll take root this time of year, but it'll be probably better than it is right now. I think that'd be perfect. Outdoors. Could be some weather, right? You don't need to play it indoors. I think you need to play that in Denver. I mean, who wouldn't go to that game? I'd go to that game. Heck yeah. It'd be fun to see a good team play down there for a change.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, well, we also need to talk about the coaching search because it's been the big news around the Broncos for the past couple of days. Obviously, with Sean Payton, they're saying they're going to talk to him after January 17th, which I guess if you didn't know or you don't pay attention to Coffee Break, we're doing a fun little guess when the coach gets hired, and James Merlat has the very last pick. So it might actually be James winning, even though all of us made fun of him for it. We know they're going to talk to Evero. He's going to be their first in-person head coach. And then we also know they're going to talk to Jim Harbaugh later this week, early this week. So you guys, when we kind of look at this, I'm glad Evero's getting to talk first. And then, of course, bring in Jim Harbaugh. But the big one for me is Sean Payton. It's the fact that they know the Saints want a first-round pick and more. And they're still having this conversation because, truthfully, I just don't think that they can, with the deficits they have on this team, afford to give up the first-round pick, Will.
Yeah, I mean, to me, listen, Jim Harbaugh and Sean Payton excite me equally, right? But I tweeted this last night. Jim Harbaugh, you owe the University of Michigan $3 million, right? Sean Payton, you owe a first-round pick and more. If those two dudes are basically equal, well, the compensation for Harbaugh is so much less that give me Jim Harbaugh all day, every day. That's not an anti-Sean Payton thing, right? Sean Payton rolled out of bed and won 10, 11, 12 games every single year. So he's a very good coach. We would kill in this town for 10, 11, 12 wins right now. But again, if you can get either one, I just think the difference between $3 million and a first-round pick is huge. I'm still Harbaugh 1A and Sean Payton 1B.
Yeah, if you didn't have to give up anything, I would take Harbaugh over Sean Payton. I'm not a huge Sean Payton guy. I think the fact that he went to 1 Super Bowl in 15 years with a Hall of Fame quarterback, in most places that gets you fired. So I think to some extent you can make the argument they underachieved down there, at least in the playoffs. But if you have to give up multiple picks and a first-round pick and a lot of assets that you need to rebuild this team, I'm out on Sean Payton. I'm done. I would take Dan Quinn over Sean Payton. They've been to the exact same number of Super Bowls. So, yeah, that's a no-go for me. I'll pass.
What about Everett, though? I mean, he's obviously put together a great defense. A lot of people are saying, and this isn't going to be the year for him to become a head coach, even though at the beginning of the season we were saying, oh, he's a Sherlock candidate. Does he return next year as the defensive coordinator for the Broncos, or do you believe that he will get a head coaching position, James?
I don't think he's going to get a head coaching position. He's been a coordinator 1 year. That's the Vance Joseph path, right? Where he went down to Miami, was a coordinator for 1 year. The Broncos hired him, and it's like, man, definitely needed a little bit more experience kind of in that bigger role. You want to see, too, over the course of 4 or 5 years, right? Is the one good year an aberration, or can he put this kind of defense together multiple times? Look, I think he's going to be a good head coach at some point. I think they need to broom everybody, including Jer Bear. Just give them a gift basket, send them on their way. No, I don't want to have anybody that's associated with this Nathaniel Hackett era, this regime, the decisions they made. Nothing worked. It was a disaster. Broom them all. Get out Will's broom from back when we were doing this after Avs games and send them all Falcon.
No, I totally disagree. I think a perfect staff next year is Jim Harbaugh's your head coach, Ejiro Evero's your defensive coordinator, and Jerry Rosberg's your special teams coordinator. OC, obviously, TBD. Justin Alton not doing enough for me. I think he's gone for sure. But Evero's been great this year. Jer Bear's earned a lot of goodwill. They're playing hard for a second week in a row. They're taking an AFC playoff team into the fourth quarter again for a second week in a row. Hopefully they get a win today because it's Chase Daniel. I actually think, James, it's pretty unfair to Ejiro Evero to say he should get fired after how good this defense has been this year.
Sorry, you're going to end up 4-13 or 5-12, right? Like, broom them all. I don't want Nathaniel Hackett's buddies from college here. I don't want anybody that was part of his, golf trip to Cabo that he put together as his staff. Ejiro Evero is going to be fine. He'll land somewhere. But we saw it with VJ. You can't force whoever you hire as your head coach to have certain coordinators and certain people on his staff. Hey, Jim, come on in, and you get Jer Bear and Ejiro. No, thank you. I'll take another job. I don't want
relationships with both those guys. He has relationships with both those guys. He worked with Evero in San Francisco. He and Jer Bear, they've been best family friends for 30 years. They call each other the Harburgs and the Rossbaws. Like, Jim knows Ejiro. He knows Rosberg. That's, to me, why it would be a perfect staff.
Yeah, it's been such a fun year. I want to keep as much of this intact as possible.
Okay, well, the game's about to get started. James, tomorrow on Coffee Break, 10:30 a.m., I'm asking you, what made your mind change? So make sure you're ready to answer that. All right, everyone. The game is getting ready to start the second half. Come hang out with us post-game. For Will Peterson, James Merrill, Rachel Vigo. We'll see you after the game. Bye, everybody.